Senior Director of Online Education with Format Approved, and I'll be your moderator today. Today's Learning Lunch title is Disaster Preparedness and Recovery in Healthcare IT Environments. I'm very excited about this subject. I think it is very much neglected by many practices, and it's really exciting to be able to share the expertise of our guest today. But before I introduce our expert, I'd like to thank for sponsoring this Learning Lunch event. Is to deliver peace of mind to their clients by reducing costs, increasing efficiency, and implementing world-class IT solutions at an affordable fixed monthly fee. You can learn more about, and we'll talk more about them at the end of our session today as well. We're joined today by Kayvan Yazdi, who is the co-founder and CTO. So thank you so much for joining us today, Kayvan.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here, Brian.
Well, as I was saying before, I'm excited about this session because I know that I'm going to learn about disaster recovery, and I think that all of us could stand to learn more about best strategies in this area. Again, you can see Kayvan's bio on your screen, but just to reiterate, it's one of the few IT firms in the San Francisco, San Jose area that's fully focused on healthcare practices, and Kayvan to help practices that were in dire need of IT experts who understand healthcare industry challenges. All right, now let's look at our list of questions that we're going to talk about today. While I just go over some very quick housekeeping notes for our guests, remember that you can ask questions of our expert at any time during the session by entering them into your chat area. We're going to hold those questions till the end, and then we'll address as many questions as time allows. We'll share all questions with our expert, so if we don't get to your question, don't worry about it. He will get back to you by email. Remember also that all registered attendees of today's session will receive an email with links to both the slides that we're looking at and also the recorded version of this event. People always ask us if they can get the slides, so don't worry about that. We'll send them out after today's session. All right, so here's a nightmare scenario for a lot of folks, I'm sure. Kayvan, let's just start off with a disaster. What happens if there's a fire in a practice's server room?
All right, Brian. Well, Brian, I want to thank you, and I want to thank everyone for attending this webinar. It's a pleasure to be here. As you mentioned, this is one of those topics that is ignored a lot in a lot of practices. It's not a very pleasant thing to think about it, especially when you start with a question like that. But again, it's something that I believe every business owner, every medical practice, every small and medium practice needs to think about it, and it should be a part of their business planning. Let me also wish everyone a belated, happy, and prosperous 2015. I hope it's going to be a great year for everyone. And I'm sorry that I have to start this webinar with this question, but this is actually one of the best ways to start this discussion because I've been to webinars, and I want to make sure everybody's engaged in this presentation. I want to make sure that people can relate to this topic and kind of start thinking about their own business, their own practice in terms of this question. So it doesn't matter if you have a business of 5 people, 10 people, or 100 people. These questions relate to everyone. Everybody needs to think about it. And another reason I'm bringing this question up first is actually this is how we start our backup and disaster recovery planning. When we go to sites or new clients, we always start with this very basic question. And it's a very good question. What happens if there is a fire in your server room? So if you have a server room, or if you have a place where you have your computers, and believe it or not, I've seen servers at an office and one server at a doctor's house or something. So we've seen all sorts of scenarios. But let's say you have a server room and may God forbid there's a fire. What really happens to your infrastructure there? There's a number of questions that you want to ask yourself when you start thinking about when you rely on technology and you want to do some sort of planning. First question would be, can you really continue doing business? I mean, the reason I use the word continue doing business because business continuity is one of the topics we want to talk about, and the easiest way to really go over it is just using its own words, which is can you continue doing business or be partially operational. If you have, let me give you an example. If you have an EMR server, let's say, and you receive patients, you have a practice management PM server or an EMR server, and may God forbid the server, it was in that server room, and now there's fire. Now everything is gone. That server's gone. The tapes that, the backup tapes that you had next to that server, if you had any backups, it's gone. The USB drives or the hard drives that you were backing up to, everything is gone that was within the vicinity of that server. What really happens to your business? Can you still receive patients? Can you receive emails? What are these things that you're going to be losing? Another question that you want to start thinking about is, okay, so this happened, I've lost everything in terms of the server room and the data that was in it. I can't work, or I can't work, I can only work partially. How long really does it take to get back to normal? How long does it take to get back to the basic functionalities that we had, and then going to the normal, receiving patients, processing your EMR, your practice management, your accounting software, whatever it is that you do with computers and servers and applications? How long does it take? Is it a half a day? Is it instant? You can actually get back to normal. You don't even rely on it too much. So these are the questions that you want to really start thinking about it. One more thing that requires when you start thinking about it, again, I told you this is more of a business question than a technology question, is a lot of business owners need to start thinking about how much revenue they lose if their IT systems or their server room was completely gone for half a day, for a whole day, for a week. How much is it that we lose? We've had medical practices that every hour would lose $20,000, $30,000.
Wow.
They were receiving patients, and every hour meant $20,000, $30,000. See, even if having that number in mind gives you a lot of idea of where you want to go with this planning, how much you want to spend. Now you have some numbers in front of you that you can look at and take it from there. And finally, the most important question would be, can you even recover from a disaster like that financially or operationally? And I'm going to show you some stats later. Actually, there are companies, there are practices, there are businesses that can never recover from such a thing because they didn't do the planning right. They didn't want to think about it. It was not a pleasant thing, and they ended up with unrecoverable data. And imagine losing your patient data forever. Hopefully it's not going to ever happen to anyone, but we've seen cases of that. So,
but only if you, obviously planning is in order if you're going to prevent that disaster from happening.
Exactly. And,
well, maybe this is a good time for you to tell us then, give us some statistics for what data loss and disasters mean for business.
Sure. All right. So there's actually a lot of sources that do researches on these things because it's one of the hottest topics out there. It's a very important topic. And again, this slide, you can take it with a grain of salt. This is not written on stone. These are, I've seen different numbers, but it gives you an idea of what's going on, because disaster is not something tangible that we see. We need to get reminded of it. And I've realized with our clients, when I give them numbers, when I show them statistics, they kind of, oh, okay, yeah, that happens too. I forgot. And that's why it's very important to have an idea about there's some of the races out there. As you noticed, 93 of companies that lost their data for 10 days or more filed for bankruptcy within 1 year of the disaster, and 50% filed for bankruptcy immediately. And when I say 10 days, there was a little more information about this. I don't want to put it on this slide. We're talking about critical data. I'm not talking about your MP3 files. I'm not talking about your graphic templates or anything. I'm talking about your patient records. I'm talking about your accounting information. So if you really lose that information, and it's kind of relative, but there's a statistics out there that if you can't get access to them for more than 10 days, there's a 93% possibility that you would file for bankruptcy. And that's from National Archives and Records Administration in Washington. Another piece of information that is important is that based on Richmond House Group, 20% of small and medium businesses will suffer a major disaster causing loss of critical data every 5 years. Now, I told you take this with a grain of salt, but this is actually, I would change it to every 4 years from my experience. There is some sort of disaster, and we can go over that later on what I define as a disaster, that every 4 years a business is going to be somehow be hit by a disaster and experience loss of data. And that's something that I've experienced. The third one is actually, the third piece of information is the most alerting one, especially for smaller businesses. This is when it says this year, this is 2014 actually. This year, 40% of SMBs, small to medium businesses that manage their own network and use the internet for more than email will have their network accessed by a hacker, and more than 50% would even know if they were attacked. This is by a very credible group, the Gartner Group. A lot of us know that. Now, you might wonder, all right, so what does that mean? That manage their own network. I'm talking about medical offices. I'm talking about an office of 5, 10, 15, 20 people where, you start growing and you have your son-in-law or you have your son doing your IT and you just go to retail. If you go to Fry's, you go to Best Buy, buy a cheap router, you put the router there, you get an internet connection like Comcast, you put it in there, and all of a sudden you have 10, 20 desktops connected to this very important highway called internet, and there's no monitoring going on, and you start doing a lot of other things. And guess what? One of those 10 desktops, from our experience, is going to do something from your desktop that is going to expose your network. And if you don't have the right tools or you don't have the right monitoring that you do on the router level, on the gateway of your network, you're going to be exposed. Your patient information is going to expose, and you're not going to even know it. Now, you might never know it for 5, 10 years, and nothing would happen. Or this information might be exposed and be sold, or somehow, we've even seen cases of, getting ransom for these things. So we've seen different cases, but that's a very alerting piece of information that we even noticed that with companies that have their IT infrastructure managed, but it's mismanaged. They don't have the right monitoring tools, and there are people that all they do is accessing the networks. They scan the networks on a daily, well, I wouldn't say daily, I would say on a second-by-second basis. They have automatic tools. And as soon as they see a vulnerability, they see an open network, they see a desktop that has open new ports, they access it, and they do their best to see what they can do. And some only do it for fun. This is really, certain people just do this for fun. But I hope if someone gets hacked, it's just for fun. It's not for anything more than that. But sometimes they do it for other reasons. So that's those 3 pieces of information. I think they're the relevant ones for especially small businesses that they need to kind of put in perspective. So we can move on to.
All right. So let's talk then more about the nuts and bolts of preparation. Obviously, we can see that losing data can be disastrous, and many small businesses are experiencing this regularly. What are the high-level steps they can take to prepare for IT disasters?
Sure. So this slide is very summarized, and again, since we had limited time, I had to kind of just put really the bullet points of what is involved in preparing for IT disasters. And if you notice, I put the word IT disaster because disaster recovery could be a little more comprehensive, more comprehensive than IT. There are companies, there are medical offices that use generators and all those mechanical things that we need to get to fully recover from a disaster and get it going. But we really, in today's presentation, we are mostly focused on the IT disaster and how to recover from that. So you've heard it, you've heard the information, you saw the stats, and now you wonder, all right, so where do I start? Now, I haven't done this before. Some of this information is a little alerting, and I'd like to get an idea about where to start. Where do I go? What do I buy? I would say don't buy anything. Really, nothing. You shouldn't buy anything. Everything starts with a little bit of planning and understanding of your infrastructure. And this is the part, Brian, we see the most resistance from doctors, from even medical practice managers. They don't want to be involved in that process. They want to be hands off. And I'm sorry, you have to be involved in this process. This is a process. This is a business planning process. This is not, it involves technology and IT, but you need to be involved in this part. And then I'm going to go over how you can have it as hands-off as possible. But this is the part that you need to initiate, and this is the part that you need to be involved, and you do it with an IT team, your IT team, you're an IT expert, or the company that you're working for, your internal IT team, whoever that does your IT. But you as a business owner, you as a practice manager, you need to be involved in this process, and it's not hands up.
It's interesting. I hate to interrupt. I just wanted to amplify your point. It's interesting that you say that because we hear that often format approved or around the risk analysis. You know, there's really no way to do an entire risk analysis without participation from the practice, but sometimes what they want is just to buy something off the shelf and then it just be done. But of course, you can't really make a real analysis of risk without getting information from the practice itself. And so if you're trying to plan these things out, you're the only person who has the necessary knowledge.
Exactly. This is you actually nail it by that. It's this planning is not a commodity. You can't go buy it from Best Buy. You can't go buy it from Amazon. This is something that requires processing, requires brainstorming, requires talking to other employees of the company, requires having an IT expert be there on site and kind of evaluating. So it's a combination of a lot of things. And a lot of it happens by evaluating the on-site IT infrastructure and also talking to others, talking to your vendors, and all those things. If you have an EMR system that is clean, it has some sort of a gateway or interface to a hospital or something. This is something that if I don't know as your IT provider, probably I'm not going to cover it. To me, everything looks like a folder. I wouldn't know that, oh, this is what it does. This needs to be up 24/7. These are the reports that get sent out to Kaiser at this time and this time. If I don't know these things, it doesn't matter how smart I am as your IT provider. I'm not going to be able to address them. Now, there are IT providers that are actually, they kind of know that they need to be more proactive about it, so they actually go deep in questions. They ask everyone, they have a process about it. But my whole point is that you need, as a business owner or a practice manager, you need to be involved in this process. And performing an IT assessment is the first step, is really just sitting down with your IT provider, listing the critical applications that you use. Think about your EMR system. Think about your email. Think about your files. And then, I want to put this in parentheses. Please do not be perfectionist in creating documentation. This is the highest level of, I would say this is the most, the obstacle that we notice a lot is people, oh my God, documentation. Start a notepad and just put the main application that you are using. Then realize, do a little bit more surveying about whether this application is something that you are using on site or it's not. It's in the cloud. You don't even host it at your place. It's not local to you. It's something that you access it from the cloud. Your email system might be on site, but your EMR you might be using ClinicalWorks or one of those cloud-based EMR systems that is not even hosted on site, so you don't need to worry about it. So it's very important, just create a bullet point of your applications. Is it hosted local, no, or cloud? Just do that. And then even we've seen people when they create a little bit of, they do a little bit of degree of how critical this application is. And so it's really something really basic when you think about it, but you would be surprised how many people don't even have that. The second step would be conducting your risk analysis. And I make it really simple when I'm talking to people about conducting a risk analysis. Create what-if situations. It's very basic. What-if situation. And the main 3 what-if situations that I personally like a lot, and people come up with their own, is when we think about losing data or failed systems, there's really 3 scenarios when you think about it. I would say the lowest level of losing data is a corrupted file, a deleted file. That's just a lost file that you need to restore. I would say that would be a what if I lose this file? And if you notice that I'm using a Word file for it. The second level of a case, which gets a little more severe, would be what if my whole server, notice the word whole server. What if my whole server goes down? I have no access to the whole server. This is different from case number 1. We're not talking about a file where your whole server is down. And the third what if scenario would be, what if my whole office is not accessible anymore by flooding, by fire, may God forbid, by a disaster. So I would say, again, I'm going to use these three cases later, so I'm going to reiterate them again. Would be file, just the lost file, number one. Number two would be full server down. And number three would be the whole office not accessible. So these are the three scenarios. And then you're going to start thinking about what happens if I lose certain files on these servers or on this, if you use it like a Dropbox or a file system. What if I don't have access to it? I lose my internet connection. And then you go to what if situation number two. Again, the planning takes a little more work, but I'm going to kind of just touch on it here and take it from there. So these are the three what if situations you can easily create, and then take it from there. The next phase would be devising a disaster recovery plan. And this is something that you might want to have a little template, but you want to, when you're creating your plan, first thing you want to think about is your goals. I want to give you a little example. There's a term we use that we call it recovery objective time, or RTO. People have different expectations about recovery, the expected time to be back up and running. There are medical offices that are clients, they tell me, you know what, I don't care about my email for 48 hours, but my EMR system needs to be up all the time. If you notice the difference of expectation here, two different systems, one of them is okay to be down for 48 hours, sorry, and the other one needs to be up and running all the time. That's what we call an RTO. And that's a very, very important thing to remember, that the objective time that people have in mind, and based on that, we review, okay, this is what you need based on this objective, and this is what you need based on this objective. And it's very simple. Just think about it. And people do it by looking at lost revenue and say, you know what, losing my email, if I don't get email for 48 hours, I'm not going to probably, you know, it's not critical. It's probably, I mean, if it's within 48 hours, I'm not gonna lose that much of revenue. Like my EMR system, I need it up and running all the time, and I would assign the right resources and whatever it takes to make sure it's up and running all the time. So determine your goals, determine your objectives of the recovery. That's the first thing you want to do. Second thing you want to do, you want to define the steps to achieve that goal. I'm going to give you the EMR example. Then that's something you want to work with your IT provider. If you don't want your EMR system to be down or be down in a minimized time, what are the steps you want to take about it? Do you have same-day hardware warranty on your server? Do you have, there are actually companies that deliver hard drives within an hour. Do you have that service? Do you pay for that service if it's important to you that you have it up and running all the time? All these little details now that you need to think about. And again, this is something that your IT provider probably would provide for you. But that's when I say you need to determine the steps to get there based on your objective. That's what I mean. That get the right warranty, get the right team on it, get the right, whatever you need to buy, have an extra hard drive on the site. There are people that get different, like they have a full extra server actually up and running all the time, just to make sure that they have zero downtime if their EMR goes down. The third part of the planning would be responsibilities. Who is involved? Name the vendors. Is it Dell? What is the number? What is the account number? Make sure you have these things accessible. And I'm going to go over documentation later, but remember that when these things happen, people are stressed out. You know, me getting even online to get Dell's number and then talking to different people on your site to get your account number is going to be hard. Make sure you have these things documented. Things that you take for granted actually come really handy when situations like this happen. And it's going to play an important role in the time that you're going to recover. It's going to really shorten them, and it's going to make it easy on the person who's doing the recovery. So have it documented, have the responsibilities, who does what. If someone needs to stay at night, who's that person? Is your office manager to work with your IT vendor, or it's your receptionist or something? Determine those responsibilities and also the vendors and the account numbers and so on. The next thing would be test to plan. And if you notice, I put test it before a disaster. Brian, you would not believe me when I tell you how many offices you step into when something has happened, you don't know them, and they contact us and they tell us, yeah, we lost our data, this and that, and we go there, and the office manager, the receptionist, or whoever is handling their backups, she tells us everything was working okay. Here's our log. Backup successful every night. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, oh, she's right, actually. It's, all the backups have been successful. But they never tested the backups to make sure it's restorable.
Yeah.
And so that's one of that's very critical. That's actually one of the main reasons people lose data. They think they have backup, but they don't.
Yeah, and just to add to that, and I think a lot of people aren't aware of the fact that, that's even a requirement of HIPAA. Not only do you have to have a backup, but you've got to test it just to be in compliance, let alone from all these business continuity questions. But yeah, I think it's very unusual for people to actually test the backup.
And Brian, the reason they don't do it is actually you don't know if you're not working with the right vendor, or you don't have the right knowledge. It gets a little tricky. It gets challenging.
Sure.
Who wants to test backups every day or every week? That's a lot of work. I need an assigned person now to do this. That's like a different position. The good news is that you don't have to do it anymore. There are solutions out there that actually have that test restore embedded in the solution itself. We actually, our own solution, Total Protect, does that too, and there are some other solutions out there that do that, so you don't need to worry about it. But make sure you back up and you test it. And at this part, I would highly recommend either get a solution that has that, or don't manage it yourself. Have your IT team manage it. Make it this is the part that needs to be hands off. You don't want your medical practice manager or one of your doctors doing restores on a daily or weekly basis. I think to them it would be a waste of time. But so you need to kind of delegate that to your IT provider. And again, two things that are very important is people start creating the cases Brian I've seen. People create like a new folder. They have a new HR system, and they create a folder, and they never add that folder to their backup because their backup is not updated. And a year later, it's been a year that folder has been created but has never been backed up. But the backup job, it's a successful, but never includes that folder.
Right.
So that's one of the main basic things that they notice, like, wow, the folder got missed.
Right.
Pretty much. That's why you want to analyze your data. You want to go over your critical data, your critical folders, and make sure all those folders are included in your backup. The other thing is tape backups. A lot of people like to tape backups. Tape backups are pretty much the worst type of backups at this point. And they're mechanical, and a lot of times there's been times where they're not restorable, but you wouldn't know it till you put it and you restore it. So those are the cases we've seen. Next phase of this planning would be document the plan. I think we've talked about it, but again, I want to mention certain things. Don't be perfectionist, please. Use a notepad. Well, don't use a notepad, but I just want to make sure that you don't make this big thing in your mind as well, documentation. All you need is a basic Microsoft Word with some bullet points.
Yeah.
Really, that's it. Right. And you don't know how much that little document, which hopefully is not going to be even more than a page. I've seen companies with 5, 6 servers, 30, 40 desktops. The whole thing was less than a page, and it was practical. It was sufficient, and it helped us a lot when something happened. Keep it simple. Use bullet points for your points and everything. But also remember to print it out. We've seen cases where they have the document on the server that crashed. So
yeah, I was going to ask about that. Don't maybe have a copy somewhere other than your office just in case something happens.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. That, and also I would recommend you print it out and you have it handy in the office in a safe place where people can access it without wasting time and kind of go over it. But so just make sure you don't put it on the server that crashed, and so now you need to access that document, and it's not available anymore. So that's one thing I wanted to mention. And then the last thing I want to say is maintain the plan. Treat this plan as a living document. I just told you about this missing folders. The reason people miss folders in their backup is because they never updated. We have a backup plan. We have a document. Yeah, that document was from 3 years ago. You've added 30 new folders since then, and they're not even included in your backup. So make sure that every 3 months, every 6 months, you kind of evaluate that. Oh, we added this HR system. We added this accounting system. Is this something that we need to add to our backup or not? So make sure every addition is included, and that comes with half an hour of reviewing what you have with your IT provider. And again, reviewing and maintaining it is much easier. It's really a minimal task. The beginning might be a little more, but as you get on a roll with it, you're just going to continue. And like every 3 months, every 6 months, just spend half an hour making sure that document is updated, the latest and greatest. So I think we can move on to the next slide.
All right. Well, let's look at this. What are the main causes of how people actually lose their data?
Yes, actually, now you've heard a lot about losing data, and I wanted to kind of give you a list of why people, what are the main causes of losing data. It's categorized into two things. It's natural disasters and then man-made disasters. And as you see, I have the list of natural disasters. I don't really need to go over it, but you remember Hurricane Katrina that actually caused a lot of data loss in New Orleans area when it happened. You know, floods, fires, power surges, lightning. These are some of the main causes and we're here in the Bay Area. We really, well, thankfully, we haven't had that many hurricanes, but we see a lot of fires and power surges. Those are the two things that I would say are more relevant for our area, but I know every part of the U.S. you might relate to one or two of these things. But the more important one that people don't know about it too much, it's actually the man-made disasters. The number one cause of losing data is, first of all, man-made disasters actually causes more damage and data loss than natural disasters. That's something to remember. And out of all those categories that I have there, end user, meaning your staff, end user deletion by mistake or on purpose is actually number one. We see a lot of cases when people delete something by mistake, they don't realize, and then 2 months later they're looking for it, and nobody knows where it is, and their backups was only backed up to a month. Now that data is gone forever because it's a file that you access once in a while. If something happens to that file, the staff or employee deletes the file, or somehow the file gets corrupted or something, and then or a lot of times they overwrite it. I've seen a lot of overwriting, and they have a backup up to 30 days, and it's day 45. There's no way to get that back. So that's one of the main things. Theft is another cost of losing data, and if you have your EMR and patient records on a server or a desktop or something, don't think it's too hard to unplug that desktop and just get it out of your office or something.
It happens all the time, and we see news reports about this happening. Big medical systems, the breaches in LA, here in Chicago, all the time people are running off with desktops that contain all of this, protected health information.
Exactly. And I think the reason I want to put, I think it's a good point to mention the word encryption here. If you have encryption, I don't want to throw out big words, but if you have encryption, then you are safe based on HIPAA. And that's why HIPAA requires encryption. Anywhere you have patient records that are digital or EPHR, anywhere you have it, you need to have it encrypted. So
I couldn't agree more.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
There's some sort of theft or something happens, people cannot read it at least. They're there, it's there, they can access it, but they can't make sense of it. It's all like, they need to decode it pretty much. Data infection by viruses and malware, I guess a lot of people are already familiar with that. A lot of people think that's the main cause. That is one of the main causes, but it's really, on my list, it would be the third. It's not really number one. Data infection or deletion by hackers. I just gave you that stat from small businesses being hacked, and I gave you some numbers about that. Hackers actually, it's one of their hobbies. They log into your information and they delete your information. One of the things, Brian, that is happening a lot, and it's a kind of worrisome, is this, we call it the ransomware.
Yeah.
They encrypt your data. They encrypt your data, and then they require you to pay some money, and then a lot of times you pay with something called bitcoins, because it's not legal, to decrypt that data for you. So every day you've been accessing this folder, one day you go there and you can't open the folder. When you open the file, you can't see anything, and there's a little notepad with a little note, hey, you've been hit by this encryption tool, and this is where you go to pay us $500 to get your files back. It's actually happening. If you don't have backup, if you don't have the right backup, you're not going to be able to really, and that actually happened to one of our clients, and the more concerning part about this, Brian, is that your virus protection does not protect you against ransomware. So you need another tool for that to really get that going. So that's something that was a trend, I would say the trend of 2014.
Yeah.
That was happening. And the last thing I have there is the hardware malfunction, which is, again, another main causes. And think about your hard drive. It's a mechanical part. It's always spinning. And anything that spins for 2, 3, 4 years, one day, it's going to give out. So just be ready for it and have a plan for it.
Absolutely. So why do providers need a backup and disaster recovery plan? And maybe the picture there says a lot of the story, but please address this if you would.
Sure, definitely. All right, yeah. So that's actually a picture from New Orleans when Katrina happened. And I think there was a loss of 108 billion in loss of not data, but the whole damage. I might be a little off in the number, but that's what I remember from what I read. So I always think about the backup and disaster recovery planning health insurance. And thankfully, I'm a healthy person so far, and I paid on a monthly basis for my health insurance in 2014. And I never went to doctor. But does it mean I really wasted my money? Or no, I didn't, because if a disaster happened, something happened to me that was major, and the medical bills nowadays, I'll probably go bankrupt if I need to pay those bills myself. And that's a problem in our system, but hopefully get fixed soon. Not related to the topic, but anyways. So think about the backup and disaster recovery planning as your health insurance. And the funny thing that is happening with Obamacare and everything, it's actually getting mandatory now to have health insurance. Well, guess what? We are in an industry called healthcare that you're required to have this health insurance. If you were in legal industry or you were an accountant, you were not required to have it. But for healthcare, you're required. So I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. To me, it's a good thing because people sometimes need to be pushed. But now by HIPAA, and if you notice, I've actually have the exact part from HIPAA, section 164.308. It talks about a backup contingency plan, and I'm going to break it down for you. And if you know, Format Approved is actually the expert in HIPAA. There are certain parts in HIPAA that are required, and there are certain parts in HIPAA that are addressable. Having a backup plan, having a disaster recovery plan, and having an emergency mode operation plan, I call it business continuity, they're actually required. You need to have it. If you don't have it, if you don't have that plan right now, you're actually violating HIPAA. And you could be fined, pretty much. Now, do you get fined? Think of it as your tax return. You might get audited, you might not. But don't even do it because of HIPAA. It's just best practices. Think of it as your health insurance. Because one day, in 3 years, in 4 years, hopefully you'll never need it, but one day you might need it. And that's when people go bankrupt because they cannot restore this data or the patient records. They lost all the patient records.
Right, you do it for your business, but it certainly is worth remembering that it is also required by the law.
Exactly, it's required, and if you don't do it, you're pretty much violating that. Now, the addressable part is the testing and revision, but remember the sentence: the time to test is not when a disaster happens. Really, you don't want to test your backup and disaster recovery when your IT room is caught fire and you don't have anything left. You really want to test your backup and disaster recovery before it's too late.
Now, you were saying
So
before about, tape backups being probably the worst option today. Give us some drawbacks of that approach and more traditional backup approaches.
sure. So I want to kind of break down. I've used three things so far, and I know a lot of people heard backup. They've been using the word backup for years. But I kind of want to touch the basics of what backup is, and then I'm going to tell you about disaster recovery and then business continuity. So we're dealing with three terms here: backup, disaster recovery, and business continuity. So I want to start with the backup, which is the most basic one, and then I'm going to give you some drawbacks to the traditional backup that you've seen. Backup is a simple thing. You backup is the activity of copying or creating duplicates of your files or your full server or system images. That's all what it is. I'm not talking about the location of it. I don't. When I say backup, I don't really care. I'm not mentioning if it's going off-site, if it's on a tape, or if it's on USB. But when you use the word backup, you're just talking about that activity itself. You're creating duplicates of your files or full system images. And I've divided backup into two categories. Either it's a file backup or a full system backup. And they're different. I mentioned that the file is, you just restore a file. The system is you back up everything on a server, like an image, and then you can restore that whole server, which is definitely more recommended. A lot of medical offices, Brian, unfortunately, are still using tape backups. They're using, I hope I don't offend anyone, but we've been to medical offices where you step in and there is a pillbox in front of me. And I'm looking at it, and you've seen those pillboxes where there's like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, just the name of the weeks, name of the days of the week on it. And in that, right in front of my eyes, there's this USB with all your patient records on it for each day. And believe it or not, I could have put it in my pocket and leave.
Right.
That easily. Please don't back up like that. Or at least put it in the safe when you do it. First thing is tape backup, or even USB and hard drive backups. They are easily stolen. They're easily lost because they're mobile. You can put it in your pocket and go. Second thing is they're not, 99% of the time, they're not encrypted. Meaning that if I put that USB drive in my pocket and go home and connect it to my to any computer, I can read the data on it that easily. It's not encrypted. It's really plug and play type of thing. And they're actually, the tape backups are really, really slow. So if your objective time is to restore, within 1 or 2 hours, I don't know of any tape backup that can restore a full system in 1 or 2 hours. You might be looking at 5 or a whole day. Tape backups are really slow. Remember, you need to tell backups are linear. You need to get to that part on the tape, and they're mechanical. For the backup, there are some factors actually to remember. The most important thing is how often you are supposed to do backup. This goes back to your planning. Remember, I talked about EMR. You don't want it to be down even for I would say 0 minutes. Or if it's down, you want to be able to restore up to this point, meaning that, hey, my EMR went down, okay, I want to be able to restore up to the last hour. That means you need an hourly backup. If your backup is from last night, I'm not going to be able to give you anything from the morning part that you worked. So determine that. Determine your applications and determine how often you want them to be backed up. So when you need to restore, you know that you can get back and do that. The new solutions that are out there are on Total Protect. They go all the way to every 15 minutes of backup, actually. So you can actually back up every 15 minutes.
And obviously, then you're not talking about a manual process where you've got to, switch out your media or whatever it is, because the more manual that process of backing up is, the more unreliable it's going to be, and the more labor-intensive for the practice, obviously.
Exactly. This is going to be something completely automated. And all you want to see is just a bunch of reports that everything's working fine, really. It should be completely hands-off. So another factor to consider is how fast to restore. I mentioned about tape backup. Hard drives are a little, not even a little, they're actually much faster than tape backups, but again, they have the problem with encryption and being easily stolen. And testing it. Tape backup, testing it, it's going to be very tough. Imagine putting a tape every night or every week and start testing certain things in the tape backup. I don't think anybody would do that. These are the drawbacks to using a tape backup or an older system. Let's move on to the next slide. And so I gave you the backup. A lot of people already know about backup. And you hear about disaster recovery, and you know kind of what it is, but you're still not clear about what it does and how it's relevant to backup. I always, mentally, the way I think about it is, think about it, just draw a circle in your mind and put backup. That's the name of this circle. Now, put this circle in a bigger circle and call that disaster recovery. So backup is a subset of disaster recovery. They go hand in hand. And the way you do your backup kind of determines whether you have disaster recovery or not. And in simple terms, it refers to specific steps taken to resume operations in the aftermath. And if you notice, I put the word aftermath in bold, of a catastrophic natural or man-made disaster or national emergency. Something disastrous happens. What is a disaster? The lowest level of disaster, I would say, would be your whole server completely down, and the next level, or the normal disaster I would call, is your whole server room down, your whole office being down, with maybe God forbid flooding or fire or something like that. So that's what we call a disaster. You need to have some sort of plan to be able to recover from that. And I'm going to go over some scenarios later on. I know we're kind of running out of time, but the most important thing that you need to remember in disaster recovery is the location of your backup. You need to have an offsite, put it in parentheses, cloud sort of backup, so you can restore your data from offsite. If your server room is gone, servers are gone, hard drives are gone, tapes are gone, the only way to get your data is from offsite. And a lot of people equate the term offsite with disaster recovery. Disaster recovery is a little more than that, but the key thing that you need to have in that is having some sort of offsite backup and taking it from there.
Well, I know we're going to talk about the cloud here in a minute as well, and why that makes so much sense for disaster recovery. But we are running short on time. Maybe we should get to what is business continuity. How is that distinguished from disaster recovery?
Sure. Now, again, business continuity, now you can draw a bigger circle that includes both backup and disaster recovery. And in simple terms, business continuity gives you the possibility of continuing doing business, meaning getting emails, receiving patients, using your EMR, even if your whole server room or even your whole office is down. And you might wonder how that works. There's a little thing that we're going to cover later, but that's really what business continuity is that it not only protects you against data loss, it actually protects you against downtime. And now I'm introducing a new word called downtime. You're not going to have downtime. So it doesn't matter. People are working on servers. You ordered new servers because it's got caught fire. It's going to arrive. You need to configure it. All this is going to take time. And here in the Bay Area, I'm looking at around 48 to 72 hours at least to get that basic server going. But meanwhile, when these things are happening, what if you could still continue doing business? You would not even notice that anything happened. And I'm going to tell you how that works and what solutions out there that kind of enables you to have to get that. And Brian, this business continuity, and I'm not exaggerating to tell you that even Fortune 500 couldn't do it 7, 8 years ago. Now it's available to small businesses. They can do it. It's affordable. A lot of people don't know about it, but it's out there because of the cloud and virtualization. It's affordable. It's easy to deploy, and a lot of working with your IT provider, you can get the right solution to kind of give you business continuity as well. Let's move on to the next slide. And all right, so
yeah, let's talk about then what is the best way, in your opinion, to go about doing this.
Definitely. So we heard all these terms, and now we might wonder how do I go about this? What solution do I need? If you're talking to your IT provider or vendor, I would say the first sentence on that slide should be your requirement. It's very simple. It should include, the solution you're looking for should include backup, disaster recovery, and business continuity. You don't need to worry about exactly what they are. I know we covered it, but this is a requirement you should have from your business. Make sure these three topics are covered in whatever solution you're getting. Backup, disaster recovery, and business continuity. If you are using some sort of third-party cloud backup, make sure that these three checkboxes are there for that. And an IT provider can help you out, determine that, or give you the right solution that does that. So that's the summary of exactly what an optimal solution is. Make sure it's HIPAA compliant encryption. I don't know of any new, some of the new solutions that are out there that are HIPAA compliant, but I want to make sure, and I think, Brian, you already noticed that there are companies that there are big names out there that are not HIPAA compliant, or they don't sign a BA, business associate agreement. I know Carbonite, I know Dropbox. Some of them are not. They don't sign anything with you, and some of them are not even mentioning if they're HIPAA compliant or not. So they're big names.
And some of them say, and I won't name names, but some of them say things about the law that are just not correct. So, yeah, if you don't have a business associate agreement with them, I just couldn't agree more with you that you got to make sure that that's in place and that they're HIPAA compliant.
Yeah, I mean, it's required. You need to work with a company that has a BA agreement with you. And if they don't provide it, it doesn't matter if it's Google or Microsoft. You can't really do business with them. It's as simple as that. Make sure the solution that you get is managed. You don't want to be doing backups and restores and tests and all those things on a daily and weekly basis. Make sure it's as delegated as possible, off your plate, on their plate type of thing, and it's completely managed. Backups are verified. And then the optimal solutions, including our own Total Protect, right now, make sure you don't have to pay too much capital cost. There's a concept called hardware as a service, where you get the hardware for your backup and disaster recovery, and you pay some sort of initial cost to set it up, but you don't buy that device. It's kind of leasing it pretty much, and so you don't need that much upfront capital cost for it. And make sure that whatever the solution you get is pay-as-you-go model, meaning that you might have 2 servers today, you might have 4 servers, and data growth is happening very fast right now. You might have heard of the word big data. It's happening a lot. People putting a lot of charts. Quickly, things are filling up. Make sure you get a solution that is scalable, and it's kind of pay-as-you-go model, and you can kind of grow with that instead of getting the big thing at the beginning and not using it. The management costs, make sure it's included in your monthly cost for that solution. So whatever you pay on a monthly basis for the solution, if there's a problem with it, make sure it's already included. You don't need to pay. And a lot of times these are kind of senior level engineers, so it could be very expensive if you need to pay for it hourly. I don't think there are solutions out there that would charge you, but make sure they don't charge you. So whatever contract you have, anything happens to your backup, any kind of need you need to do this, you need to do that, make sure it's included in your monthly plan, so you don't need to worry about high hourly bills. And then one more thing that I want to mention is there might be times that, and I'm going to mention in the next slide of what that means, there might be times where you need to run a virtual server, a clone server in the cloud. Make sure you know how much it's going to cost you. If your office is not accessible for 2 weeks and you need to run your EMR server in the cloud, 2 weeks of cloud time. If there's a cost, know how much it's going to be. For our Total Protect solution, we offer that for free for our clients, but if there might be some other solutions out there that actually would charge you on a daily basis. So, you have 2 servers up and running in the cloud per day. This is how much it's going to cost you. Know it ahead of time. So these are the 4 major areas. But again, the most important part would be that whatever you get, make sure it includes backup, disaster recovery, and business continuity. Let's move on to I guess it's our last slide. I know this picture looks a little overwhelming at the beginning, but I'm going to simplify it. This is the kind of picture-based solution that is the optimal solution that includes backup, disaster recovery, and business continuity. If you notice, I have right in the middle, I have a local NAS. Think of it as that device. We call ours Total Protect. It's something that it comes to your site, it comes to your office, and all your email server, your file server, let's say you have an EMR, your EMR server, desktops, anything that you have does backups to this device. Now, I mentioned about the 3 cases of data loss that happens. Losing a file was case number 1. losing a full server was case number 2, and having a full disaster and the whole office down is case number 3. So let's see each case, what happens and how we can recover from this. The first case is you delete a file by mistake from your file server. It's easy. You access the local NAS and you just restore that file right from there. It's accessible through actually web. And you can just, when I say web, it's actually local, but you can use it like Internet Explorer or Chrome to access it. The second case, what if your email server, your whole server catches fire or overheats or the hard drive dies and the whole server is down? Now remember that I told you that there was a 0-minute downtime for some companies. They don't expect any downtime. The beautiful thing about this solution is that this local NAS has a clone of that server on itself. And what it can do, it can boot that clone server and get you up and running. So your staff would not even know that the original server is down actually. They still think they're accessing the server. And as I mentioned, these are synced every 15 minutes. So you might lose about 10 minutes of work, but compare that to being days or weeks being off or down, but your full server is pretty much gone. So people start using the virtual server or the clone server on this local NAS, and then you can spend 7 days, 10 days, whatever, 20 days fixing the original server or order a new server, order parts and to reconfigure it. So if you notice, it's going to give you business continuity at the same time. Moving on to the third case where your whole office is down. If you see in the picture, my local NAS is synced up with my offsite NAS, which is in the cloud. And this happens on an hourly basis, meaning that if your whole office is down, you need to still have access to your EMR system. You need to get that going. You have the clone of your EMR server in the cloud. We can actually boot that server for you and get you going, give you some remote access, get you going. You can start, accessing data, whatever it is that you need to do, till your whole office is fixed, till everything is fixed. There was some sort of fire, and then you can kind of move back to your original office and get the physical servers or your original servers up and running. But again, it gives you instant access. And it gives you business continuity where you're continuing doing business even though it was a full disaster that happened in the office. So that's kind of high-level picture of that. And what I was meaning by make sure you know how much they charge you if you run your server in the cloud. I was talking about case number 3 where your whole office is down. Now you need to run your servers in the cloud. I don't have an idea about how much it's going to cost. If it's free, if it's not. Some people offer 14 days free. I'm hoping within 14 days you have your office back. But,
that might not be as easy as it might not be possible in some cases.
Exactly.
Well, and it's interesting to see how this hybrid approach offers the best of both worlds because you've got the on-site local storage, but then you've also got the cloud backup option as well because, again, if all your backups are in your office and your office burns down, you've defeated the purpose.
Exactly. That's definitely, you want to get that offsite, but the beautiful thing about this, Brian, is that it's not only file backups offsite, it's your full server offsite. So you can actually get a clone of your server in the cloud offsite till everything is fixed.
And you can just do that very quickly without...
Very quickly. Within 1 hour, maybe less than an hour, you can get that going. And clients love it. Really, it's the best thing that happened to us for the past 2-3 years. They love it.
Well, we're just about out of time. We didn't have time to get to our questions. We had some from the audience, but we're going to go ahead and send those on to our experts, so don't worry about that. I want to thank you so much for joining us today, Kayvan. This is a really great subject. I really feel like we all learned a lot from your presentation, so thank you so much.
My pleasure. I hope it's going to be a good year for everyone.
All right, and so if you want to learn more about this subject or learn about the services we're also going to send out the slides and the recorded version of this event if you want to share it with anyone. So please do that. I want to thank our audience for joining us today. And again, thank you, Kayvan, for joining us. If you are looking for Level 2 HIPAA training, we have a new workshop series approaching next week here at Format Approved. Our certified HIT security administrator course builds on basic HIPAA knowledge to give you an advanced knowledge of security practices. You can learn more about that at www.formedworkshops.com. You can go to formedapprove.com and click on that Learning Lunch Series button to see our upcoming events. Also keep an eye on your email inbox for upcoming events. We bring experts to you on a weekly and monthly basis on subjects related to HIT, so please join us for those future events. Thank you again to everyone, and we'll see you at our next Learning Lunch event.